These guys are ridiculous. These guys are ridiculous.
Now, how about them damn Celtics?
And we are back with another How About Them Celtics video. Sam and I are here recording Thursday, September 7th, as we are recording every Thursday, making these videos. And we have something slightly different today, obviously, like we've said for the past, 5 weeks now. It's the off season, and it's not free agency, and it's not summer league, which means we
prayers.
don't have anything to talk about. So,
yeah.
I don't know if this will turn into a series. It depends on how much you guys like it. If you watch it, we'll do it again. If not, maybe not. Changing Celtics history is what we've briefly called it. Basically, we're gonna just ponder what would happen if, in this case, if Kyrie Irving never left the Celtics. Obviously, he left the Celtics, signed with the Nets back in 2019. The whole meme of 2 max slots, him talking to KD, going to the Nets instead of the Celtics. I pulled up Celtics franchise index here so we can look at the team season to season. Kyrie Irving was on the team for 2 years, 17, 18, 18, 19, then obviously left. They went 55 and 27, then 49 and 33. And then 1 year after, without Kyrie on the team, they only lost one more game. Obviously, they did sign Kemba Walker, so they did replace him with a new starting point guard, which helped bridge the gap between the Kyrie years and the current iteration of the team. Obviously, the year after Kyrie left the Celtics was the bubble season. So the Celtics, the season got cut short. The Celtics ended up making it to the Eastern Conference Finals that year. Then the year after that, they went through the down year where they were 500. And then since then, we've had back-to-back years of making it to the finals and then Eastern Conference Finals. The success found itself again. But what would have happened if Kyrie Irving never left the Celtics? Now, how do you want to approach this? I was going to ask you this, and I figured it'd be a good part of the discussion. Do we want to approach this as if Kyrie committed to the team throughout the 2019 season and kept his word, or do we want to say he still went through the rough patch against the Bucks, but then he still kept his word and was like, all right, no, let's figure it out?
Okay, so it's funny that you mentioned that because I was just doing a little bit of poking around to see if I could find any trend. So what I had done, once you mentioned the 2 max slots, him and KD talking in Charlotte at that All-Star game, I went to Basketball Reference, I pulled up his page, and I went to the 18-19 season, and I looked up his splits pre- and post-All-Star break, and to be honest, there's really not that much of a difference. His scoring goes up, his assists go up by 0.1, his rebounds go up a bit. The numbers themselves, efficiency-wise, do take a bit of a drop. Goes from nearly 50% from the field down to 46, and his three-point percentage also drops from 41 down to 38.5, still solid numbers. So the real drop-off came in the playoffs when he shot about 38% from the field. Not great. Obviously, the Bucks series, he shoots, 8 of 22? And he's like, you'll never see that again. And then he shoots 7 of 22 in the next game. So I don't really know how much the leaving impacted his play. I guess if you really want to make that argument, which I guess we should, why not, right? In that playoffs, a series I still cannot believe that they lost. They beat the piss out of the Pacers in the first round, they sweep them. They come out, they beat Milwaukee really bad in game 1. In Milwaukee, at 5 serve, and then they lose game 2, and they never recover. They lose 4 straight. So, the reason why I feel this is important to his mindset is once things got tough, he kind of broke and quit.
Yep.
So, let's say that he was committed to the team. Does he mentally behave differently? Does he lock back in? Does he actually not shoot 7 of 22 after saying he won't shoot that badly again? Maybe. I don't know if it's really fair to dissect that far because let's say they win a couple more games, but maybe still lose the series. I think that's as far as we should really dabble just because that was a kind of crazy situation. You really can't tell how different it would have went because he was actually there. You can't really pontificate too much.
New FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube at YouTube TV.
Yeah, let's say Kyrie still has his meltdown against the Bucks, but instead of joining Kevin Durant, let's say the whole him recruiting KD thing wasn't a part of it. Like he
Maybe he
just
feels some
melted
guilt,
down.
some shame. He's like,
Sure.
wow, I just played terribly and I shouldn't leave on these terms.
He melted down against the Bucks. It's fine. I think part of the reason he played poorly, I think something about, I think his grandpa passed away. He was dealing with some family stuff,
That's
whatever,
what he
right? He's
cited.
dealing with stuff throughout
Yes.
the half the season. Struggled in the Bucks series, but then he comes back, rejoins the Celtics. First and foremost, Kemba probably goes back to the Hornets, right? Kemba doesn't
Correct.
sign in Boston. He doesn't come there. And there was a rumor that the Hornets did offer him money. I don't think it was, I feel like they didn't offer him a full max, but they still offered him more than the Celtics. It was something weird, I remember back then. So he probably doesn't leave Charlotte. Another question, okay, so Gordon Hayward's still there. He'll be coming back supposedly healthier again as he was in the 2019-20 season. He wasn't perfect, but he played a lot more than people give him credit for. Horford's there too. Jalen, Jason. I think that's the other thing. How much do Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum progress if Kyrie is there for longer? Right. And
That's
obviously
a good question.
they had Kemba too, so you could sort of see it happening, but then Kemba left and Kemba digressed, I would say probably more rapidly than Kyrie did. And at the same time, if Kyrie is still in Boston, that's not going to change his stance on I'm not getting the vaccine. So
Correct.
he's still not going to play all those games, except it's going to be with the Celtics. They're probably a bit more equipped to deal with that than the Nets were. But he's probably there for the bubble, or he's definitely there for the bubble because there was no vaccine. What do you mean?
He didn't participate in the bubble. He said he was anti-bubble and he protested the bubble. He literally what
was the reason behind it then?
It was because, let's see, Kyrie Irving discusses pushing for NBA bubble strike amid racial injustice. So all of that still happens.
Okay, sure. So he's not in the bubble anyways, but that means they also don't have Kemba in the bubble. So do they win as many games in the bubble? Do they still go to the conference finals? Probably not.
Probably not. No.
So they probably lose Toronto in the 7th game or something. They in the second round maybe. I still think they beat Philly because they swept him. It wasn't close. But Gordon Hayward probably still gets hurt. We're not going to change injuries because one player's on the court. So they're left with no Kemba, Brad Wanamaker starting at point guard, and no Gordon Hayward against Toronto. They probably don't win that series.
No, I mean, so this year he leaves. They go 48-24, which is one game worse than they went the year before. And like you mentioned, in the bubble, they lose in the Eastern Conference Finals. I had in my take, Kyrie doesn't participate in the bubble, like we just discovered or remembered.
Mm-hmm.
And they're probably going to end up having a worse end of the season. That was my take.
That said, do they win more regular season games with Kyrie than Kemba? Because then could they have
I truly am not sure. I don't think the difference was that drastic. That season, Kemba was an all-star starter. And the whole knee thing happened around the All-Star break, and then the season shut down for a little bit. So it's not even like he missed a chunk of time because of that. I'm really not sure that season goes any better, and certainly ends in a worse fashion.
Not that it matters, but wasn't Kyrie?
What?
No, he was. I was curious. I was like, wasn't Kyrie also an all-star starter? But he was not. I was just pondering. I don't know. I feel like they might have a. It's tough. Maybe they would have been a similar regular season. But then again, Hayward was also there. Kyrie is probably a better player than Kemba regardless. It's tough. It doesn't matter in the end. They finished with I just want to look at the seeding because I think that's the other thing.
Like
who
seed.
They were the 3rd seed. So who would they have played instead? Would they have gone on to play, Miami in the earlier round instead? So other stuff. They probably wouldn't have made the Eastern Conference Finals though, regardless, because Kyrie wouldn't have been in the bubble. So whatever that season. Now, how long are we saying, like, is this what if Kyrie is still on the Celtics today? Like there was never any problem and he's just always with the Celtics?
When we started this, I said to the current day.
Okay. So if that's the case, the next season, 2020, 2021, they went 500. But
yes,
you have to backtrack again because they eventually lost to the Nets in the series. So backtracking even further, because we have to expand this past the Celtics. If Kyrie doesn't leave, and actually we should account for this for the bubble season too. If Kyrie doesn't leave the Celtics, does KD just re-sign with the Warriors? Because he's not going to Brooklyn without Kyrie. I don't think so. And if that's the case, the Warriors are probably good in the bubble season. They're probably still really good because Steph Curry got quote unquote hurt that season. Realistically, they just shut him down, right? Because Clay was out, D'Angelo Russell didn't work out, but they got him in the KD trade. So if KD was still healthy, Clay's still going to be hurt that season, but you still have Steph, KD, and Draymond. They probably are still one of the better teams in the league. They probably still make the playoffs. I'm not going to say they're going to win the title or anything like that, but they're still a good team. So there'll be a threat in the West. And then past that, the Nets aren't very good. So their Celtics aren't there to lose to the Nets in the 500 season. By the time they get Clay back, the Warriors are probably still really good in 2021 and 2022 when they won the title, probably better than they were because they still have Kevin Durant. So the 500 season, 2020, 2021, what are we saying for the Celtics? Because you probably also have to look at the way free agency and all that stuff played out in regards to like everything. Well, also the like
just go back and just redo all of it.
there's a lot of stuff.
We should have made some
pieces.
rules before we did this. This has become a disaster.
This was your idea.
I know it was, and it's not going any way that I expected.
What did you expect? We're talking about
focus on the
entire
Celtics. I don't care about
That's
the
not
Warriors.
how it worked. That's not. You can't just focus on the Celtics.
What's the title of this? What if Kyrie Irving never ditched the Celtics? Changing Celtics history.
Yes, and you have to consider the context of the rest of the league when you talk about that, because the Celtics aren't the only team affected.
It's true, but not this much.
Not this much.
We can't go through every free agent signing. And
I'm not saying that context. I'm saying the Nets are going to be a lot worse. So the Eastern Conference is going to be
absolutely.
different. The Sixers are probably going to be weird too, because what do they do with Ben Simmons? They're not going to have Harden, because Harden's probably not going to join the Nets. So I'm saying the Eastern Conference looks a lot different for the Celtics.
Yet. Oh no, Harden is on the Nets at this point. Correct. Correct.
Well, not anymore.
Well, no, but like in real life at this point.
Yeah, I know. Yes. So the context of we're talking 2020, 2021 season, because we're saying the bubble season, the Celtics probably don't do as well, but then the next year they're a bit better, I guess. But then you also think, what happens with Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward? Terry Rozier's gone, right? It's fine. Gordon Hayward, does he also leave, or does he stay now because Kyrie's still on the team?
I mean, he left, and they were successful. Like when he left, so like he left after the bubble run. I don't.
We're still saying he leaves. Okay, we're still saying he leaves. Then fine. So now we're entering 2020, 2021. Kemba is still on the roster, but this is his last year in Boston in real life. So we're gonna say, but that never happened in the scenario. So Kyrie is still on the team instead.
Yes,
and so you're rolling out with
have to happen.
Okay. I don't know how much better this team does. And the other question is, this team was a mess. To put it bluntly, this team was terrible.
This year was a disaster.
They had no depth. They couldn't figure their shit out. They still had Kemba, but Kyrie is probably healthier than Kemba was at this point.
Yes.
But at the same time, I don't think Kyrie plays a lot of games, because this is the season he said, I'm not getting the vaccine, I'm not playing.
This is
also
true. Yes.
So
just trying to remember correctly.
So in that case,
yeah, you know what? It probably does go very similarly, because I kind of forgot about that whole thing in the context
might be worse.
Of this, because in my notes I put, if Kyrie was around, they probably have a better regular season record, better than 31-31, meaning they would be a higher seed. As Kemba was a shell of himself at that point, C's probably could have had some home court at the very least if Kyrie plays, but he didn't play.
He played in 54 games this season. So this was a season before the vaccine issue, but he only played in 54 games because there was some reason he only played in 54 games. So I forget exactly why, but
there was
I don't
only
know if he was
70
hurt or he held out. Okay, so he did play. He played in a decent chunk in that case. So maybe they do a little bit better this year. They probably make the playoffs, but I still don't like. Even
do they get
if
home
Kyrie's
court? That's my question. Do they get home court? It was Atlanta and New York 4 and 5. Miami was 6.
My argument is, if Kyrie's on the team, Jaylen Brown probably doesn't play as well and have the progression year with Kemba being hurt. And I know Jaylen Brown got hurt towards the end of the season, but I feel like this was the year that the Jays started to be like, okay, we are the top 2 in Boston. If Kyrie's there, that probably doesn't happen. So I think they might be a little bit better, but I still think they might be like 5-6 seed, maybe 4 seed. Maybe they sneak into home court, but I don't think they'll be like a really, really good team, especially considering their depth was still tragic this year.
It sure was. Jabari Parker, Romeo
truly
Langford
terrible.
Getting real playoff minutes. Not the best.
Yeah. No.
I'm not convinced. You've made a good argument. I don't really know how much this changes.
Well, I mean, even if you look past the, playoff minutes, guys, like Tristan Thompson got 24 minutes a night for this team.
Correct.
They were bad. It's just a poorly constructed Celtics team. So, like, are we saying they may be? They're not beating the Bucks, but then again, the Nets aren't the Nets, so the Nets wouldn't be in that playoffs. So the Hawks, they compete with the Hawks and lose the Hawks. Those are the Sixers. Like, I still don't think they're a good enough team to compete with those guys, especially considering the Jays probably don't progress as well with Kyrie there over Kemba because Kemba had a down year. So I still don't think they win much. So far, the Kyrie stays in Boston has led to they probably do worse in the bubble, and then they probably do marginally better in 2020, 2021, right?
Yes.
So
I agree.
I still think the Bucks win the title, play the Suns, whatever, all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't see it changing too much.
And
with all the evidence, it just doesn't make a ton of sense. He's not going to move the needle that much.
Unfortunately, I think they might be worse in 2022 as well.
Agree.
That's my hot take, or I guess if you agree, it's not a hot take. But first and foremost, Kemba's gone at this point, right? Fine. Kemba's gone. Kyrie's still there, so they still have a point guard. Kemba's gone. No Al Horford. Don't get Al Horford back. So
True.
no Al. Well, does Al stick around if Kyrie stays? That's another thing.
No.
Because remember, well, he said if I knew Kemba was coming, I would have stayed.
Yes,
so
but he agreed with that Sixers deal handshake agreement way in advance. Like, he was gone. The plan in Boston was probably going to be to keep Kyrie around. Maybe he knew that might not be happening too. But
yeah,
I don't think he loved being there with Kyrie. That's my take.
Maybe. So let's act fine. So no Al. Al's not back. Right? What year did they get? Okay, no. Robert Williams was the 18 draft. Because I'm thinking, because as much as it's maybe too in depth, you have to think draft position too. So if they're worse in certain years, like
chop it, axe it. Don't want to do it.
That's not fine. Whatever.
I mean, even then we said it's about the same. We said they finished with the same record.
I know.
So
I'm thinking.
Absolutely not.
I was thinking of it in the context of Robert Williams, but that was earlier. Fine. Whatever.
Yeah. No, it's fair.
You're an asshole.
Do they still pick Romeo?
I just need you to know you're truly the worst. You're the worst. You're a piece of shit. 2022, I think they're worse because the Jays don't have the experience from the year prior because Kyrie's there, probably taking more touches. And Kyrie isn't like, he's still there, but he's causing drama. Like, he's causing problems that year because he's not getting the vaccine. So he's on and off the court, doesn't know what's happening. He's probably like, do the Celtics suspend him like the Nets did? And also the context of, does Brad Stevens get fired still? Do they still move on to Ime Udoka that season? And if that's the case, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, does the coaching change happen?
I don't think Kyrie sticking around helps Brad Stevens' longevity. I don't think it makes him want to stick around in the coaching seat much longer.
Sure, but if they're a little better the year prior, which we ended up saying they're not, I'm just saying like the context would have been there if he had helped. But I do think they probably move on anyways. So that's fine. I think they're worse in 2022 probably. Certainly in the like I still think they might. Honestly, they might have the same first half of the season, but then just duplicate it into the second half of the season, right? Like, they probably have a similar trajectory to start the year. They probably don't figure it out as well because on top of having a new coach in Ime Udoka, they have Kyrie Irving who's causing the problems and he's not playing and he's, messing around off the court and not getting the vaccine, which is causing a bunch of back end issues. So there's that. And so all in all, they probably might finish with a similar record, like just over 50 wins, or maybe not even, because they strung together a ton of wins at the end of the season. They probably finished like 43 wins, like a lot closer to 500. They probably just duplicate their beginning of the season in the second half. And at that point, like, what was the playoff picture that year? Like, would they have even made the playoffs with 43 wins? Because the East got strong.
I think they would have, but I don't have any reference in front of me right now. Hold on.
The 2020... Oh, come on, Basketball Reference. Show me the playoffs. Let me look. 2022 NBA playoffs. I just want to see the seeding. 2022, that was the play-in year. The 8 seed, the down to the 10 seed had 43 wins. So they probably would have been a play-in team that year. If like we're based on our win projection, they were a play-in team because the 6 seed had 46 wins. Do you think they would have won 46 games if Kyrie was there causing a mess and the Jays didn't have the progression? I don't think they put together that late season run like they did.
Yeah, I don't think he's helping any kind of recovery effort.
especially with Noel. I keep forgetting Noel. He was huge.
Yeah, I don't know if it goes as well. This is maybe a blessing that he left.
I at this point definitely because they would have been in the play-in tournament. Maybe they win a couple games because actually, no. In this context, they definitely would have been a play-in team because the Nets are a play-in team here, and the Nets wouldn't have been what they are. Maybe they still are okay because they would probably have just continued that fun D'Angelo Russell team. So they still would probably be like decent. They wouldn't be a terrible team. They would just probably be like mid. But Celtics are probably looking at a play-in spot, and then they'd have to beat one of the Hawks, the Cavs, or the Hornets, who all of which are not too great. So they probably would have gotten out of the play-in. But that would have landed them a date with the Heat or the Bucks or the Sixers in the first round, all of whom they probably don't beat in the series that year if they don't have the run that they have. And I think Kyrie, did he end up playing by the end of the season in the playoffs that year? He did. So they would have had Kyrie
He was
back.
in the Celtics. He flipped the Garden fans off.
Yeah.
There's the picture of Tatum celebrating with him looking miserable. One of the great pictures ever.
So they probably have Kyrie back. But yeah, I don't know. Also, if this happens, I guess you can assume they still try to get better, so they still make the Josh Richardson and Derek White trades, right? Like they still probably make those moves, so Derek White's still on the team.
Yeah, for the purpose of this, yeah, why not?
Okay, I was just trying to think in terms of like.
At that point, it's very tough to think about.
If you really want to go back, their ability to get Derek White would have relied on them getting Evan Fournier. So we can assume that they still got Evan Fournier because they still traded Gordon Hayward, because all of that came from the Gordon Hayward TPE. Derek White's on the team because of the Gordon Hayward TPE, realistically. And so since we said Gordon Hayward still left, let's just say he still joined the Hornets, because that probably wouldn't have changed based on how the results of that season went. Then we'll still track that Derek White is on the team, and that's fine. And so they still flop. They flop even harder in that season. Then the question becomes not, does Kyrie help them in the 2023 season? If the Celtics don't make that run to the final and they have another flop season, do they break up the Jays? Genuinely. Do they say, okay, Kyrie, Tatum, let's trade Jalen for somebody else? I think probably. They probably end that.
Well, maybe, but maybe they also just get rid of Kyrie at this point, too.
I don't know.
Because you can't imagine he's been great, right? He sets out the bubble playoffs. He has the whole vaccine issue where he can't play. I can't imagine the organization is thrilled at this point. I just don't know if he's lasting much longer. We did say we were going to go through the current season, but I don't know if he did request a trade from the Nets halfway through last season when the Nets were actually good. So, well, I actually can't see him lasting past that 2022 season.
So let's say they fizzled out in the first round of 2022, because that seems like what we're talking about, what we're tracking here. They probably don't get a very good return for Kyrie. They probably get something similar to what the Nets got, in return for Kyrie. And at that point, the Jays probably aren't as good because they don't have the experience of carrying the load like they did in the 2022 season or the 2021 season, because Kyrie was there in 2021. And then by that point in 2022, they weren't very good and they didn't have that experience. All these stats, like we talked about last podcast, where, Tatum has all these playoff points. Those get slashed because he's not going on these runs. So right. Tatum doesn't have the playoff experience. Jalen's probably not used to being a second option. They're probably not as good this year either. Even with a new head coach, like they probably are just worse overall with Kyrie if he had stuck around. I was researching stuff for this, and I saw an article from, I think it was Brian Robb, and it called it a blessing in disguise. And if you think about it in the context of this way, it really was. Like they probably
when you really think hard, probably doesn't work that great for the Celtics. I mean, just think of it like this. Granted, in 2021, when the Nets were probably at their very best, their peak, he rolled his ankle in the playoffs and really didn't get to participate in the Bucks series, right? But at the same time, since leaving Cleveland, Kyrie has never made it to a conference finals. Like, he's never played in a conference finals game. It hasn't happened. The 2018 Celtics did it, but he wasn't a part of that run. 2019, they lose to Milwaukee. 2020 doesn't participate. Nets lose in the first round. 21, they lose to the Bucks in a game 7. 22, Celtics beat the piss out of him. And 23, he doesn't even make the playoffs with Dallas. So, yeah. Maybe very good that Kyrie left. Is he still a rat for leaving? Yeah, because there was no way of knowing that any of this would have happened. But
Yep.
Good for the Celtics. Good job.
And I know you only care about the Celtics, but like looking at the rest of the Eastern Conference briefly, James Harden probably stays in Houston, right?
No.
Because he doesn't. Where does he go then?
Somewhere. I mean, he didn't get fat on purpose because he wanted to go join the Nets. He just didn't want, like, Houston was still bad. Houston was bad. They went into that, what was it, 2020-21 season with like Westbrook, and actually I don't even think Westbrook was there anymore. He was
John
traded
Wall.
to Washington, so it was him and John Wall.
Yep.
James Harden was done. It had nothing to do with the Nets.
Okay. So James Harden's somewhere, but not the Nets, and then not Philly. So Philly, like Ben Simmons' situation goes down still, right? You have to assume it still happens. They don't have the easy out of trading him for Harden, so who knows what happens there. I think I might be being misquoted. I think they might work out better because I think there was a rumor that the Kings almost traded for Ben Simmons instead of Domantas Sabonis. So the Sixers would have gotten Tyrese Halliburton. And so it would have been Halliburton, De'Aaron Fox, and Tyrese Maxey, which probably would have worked out a little bit better for the 76ers than James Harden. So maybe that'd work out better for the Sixers if Kyrie's there. KD presumably stays in Golden State, or maybe he's still sick of Draymond and he just joins. Sorry to make you mad, the Knicks. Like maybe he just joins New York instead because they did have a max spot.
What other teams had cap space that summer? Because I feel like there were other teams that it was like, oh, KD and Kyrie could go here.
I
mean, there's also a chance that the Celtics offload somebody to get KD. That's also a possibility.
Maybe.
And then they just become the Nets.
Possible. Kyrie was the big signing, obviously, and KD as well. I'm just looking through signings here, excuse me. There's not too much realistically. Like KD and Kyrie were obviously the big ones. Maybe Washington clears space to bring him home. But I don't remember off the top of my head who had like real cap space to bring him in. The Clippers. Maybe the Clippers try to draw him in. It gets weird at that point because it feels like he was kind of done with Draymond and the Nets provided him an out. Maybe Nets still do something, except it's not Kyrie and they still bring in KD with somebody else, like a Paul George or something weird. But the whole landscape of the NBA gets very weird if Kyrie doesn't, two max slots with KD. And the Celtics are very much better off, although Sixers are probably mad because they could have maybe had Halliburton. I want to make sure I'm not crazy. I'm pretty sure that was a thing. I'm pretty sure I was listening to Tyrese Halliburton on some podcast, and he said like, yeah, my agent said it's Philly, like, get ready, and like he just thought he was going to be traded for Ben Simmons. Kings offered Halliburton to Sixers and Simmons talks. Yep, it's right here. Jake Fisher said they offered him, which again would have worked out well, but in the end they got Harden, and now they are probably regretting it, and he doesn't want to be a part of the organization with Daryl Morey. Anyways, so all in all, Celtics. Good that Kyrie left. They're glad at this point. Celtics history would have been changed, and it would have been changed probably for the worse, as much as you might think otherwise, because all the off-court stuff, Kyrie just didn't end up playing in a lot of games for the Nets, and you don't imagine that changes because I don't think his stance on the vaccine would have changed because he's in a different city. So there's that. I think the regulations that were in New York probably still would have affected.
Yeah,
I thought of that
thinking,
too.
I was like, I don't remember.
I think they probably would have come into play at least a little bit because it's not like it was Texas. Like it's still a little bit different. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Hey, I mean, the Mavericks had the Mavericks had full fans in the arena for like half that season that year. So they were something. They were doing it different. Anyways, thank y'all for tuning in. Let us know what other history changing stuff you want us to look at over the course of Celtics history. If you like this, subscribe to How About Them Celtics. We appreciate you. Sam, get us out of here.
Yes, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you stay tuned to the channel, subscribe to it, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any daily uploads this summer. We're almost there. We're chugging along. You can follow us on social media at How About Them C's. That's Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Facebook is just the name of the podcast. You can find us on Spotify and Apple. Leave a nice 5-star review there and follow. You can follow Jack at Jack's One NBA. You can follow me at Sam LaFrance NBA, both on Twitter. That's it for us. Bye.
Taco, come on.
Taco's